Every driver keeps two maps. One's on the dash, the other one's in his gut. And it's shorter, it's just the roads where his hands go tight on the wheel before he even sees the sign. Nobody handed you that map. You earned it, one bad descent at a time. Tonight we're putting 12 of those roads in order, from the one that teaches you to the one that keeps you humble for the rest of your career. And two things before we start. Somewhere on this list is a bridge so terrifying that a company will meet you at the bottom, get in your seat, and drive your rig across for you, cash only. And waiting at number 1 is a road so brutal the men who drive it reached all the way back to the Vietnam War to find a name ugly enough for it. A road that's 1,000 miles from any jungle. One more thing, a little game to keep you honest. Count how many of these roads a state government quietly gave up on. Quit trying to fix the road itself and just built something at the bottom to catch what goes wrong. A gravel pit, a steel net, a wall, a set of gates. I'll flag each one as we pass it. The final number is higher than any driver wants it to be. Let's climb. Number 12, Jellico Mountain, I-75, Tennessee into Kentucky. We don't start with the deadliest, we start with the teacher. Jellico is the border grade where I-75 hands you from Tennessee up into Kentucky. A long 4% pull that any Western driver will laugh at, and they're right to. Next to what's coming, Jellico is a bunny hill. So why does it lead off? Because for 10,000 drivers coming up out of the flat south on their first Chicago run, Jellico is the first mountain that ever pushed back. It's where a rookie first smells hot brake and slowly realizes the smell is his. 4% sounds like nothing until there's 80,000 pounds leaning on it, in the rain, with the fog pouring through those Kentucky rock cuts and a wall of taillights blooming red where somebody ahead of you found out too late that his gears were too high. The old hands remember when this grade was meaner. Before they rebuilt it, the respect never left. Jellico rarely takes the truck. What it takes is the cocky. It burns the overconfidence out of you cheap before the real mountains get their chance to charge full price. Every driver has a hill that taught them to read a grade sign like scripture. For half the Southeast, this is the classroom. Number 11, Raton Pass, I-25, New Mexico into Colorado. In March of 2025, New Mexico slammed more than 100 miles of I-25 shut in both directions, from Las Vegas clear up to Raton, because the wind was stacking vehicles into each other faster than troopers could reach them. Now the honest part, because you've earned it. Raton is not a brake killer. The grade tops out around 6%, and the climb itself is nothing to a Rockies veteran. Raton earns its spot a different way. It sits at 7,834 feet, wide open to the sky, and it is the only interstate door between Denver and Albuquerque. So when the wind comes across that gap and the drop gates come down, there's your first one, count it. The freight between two of the biggest cities in the Mountain West doesn't reroute. There is no reroute. It parks and waits for the wind to lose interest. Pioneers on the Santa Fe Trail cursed this exact climb. Clint Black and C.W. McCall both put it in songs about beating the early snow. The fear on Raton was never the hill. It's that the pass can close the door on you and the whole supply chain behind you, and flatly refuse to say when it'll open again. Number 10, Pacheco Pass / State Route 152, California. This one doesn't scare you with a cliff. It scares you with a nickname, Blood Alley. State Route 152 over Pacheco Pass is the main artery hauling Central Valley produce over to the Bay Area. And for decades, it was a narrow 2-lane where a tired driver drifting 6 inches over a yellow line at 3 in the morning meant a head-on with whatever was coming the other way. It got so bad that in a single 6-year stretch in the 1990s, 31 people died on it. The state finally gave up on driver behavior entirely and bolted a barrier down the middle in 1995. Count it, that's 2 roads now where the fix was a wall. Crossover crashes basically stopped overnight. That's always the tell. When the cure is concrete, the problem was never bad luck. But here's the part drivers pass around at the fuel counter. Long before the asphalt, this was a stagecoach road with a violent history, and truckers running it at night swear the place is haunted. A woman on the shoulder, a rig that vanishes, time that folds so a 20-minute leg feels like 5. Believe it or don't. A road earns a reputation like that the same way it earns crosses on the shoulder, bodies. You don't have to buy the ghosts. You do have to respect a road so so lethal they walled it in half. Number 9. US Route 2, Montana, the High Line. Here's a number that should stop you cold. 80 minutes. That's the average time an ambulance takes to reach a wreck on US 2 across northern Montana, according to rural safety researchers who flagged this road for having one of the worst fatality rates in the entire country. Not because the road is twisty, most of it is flat, straight, and posted at 70, even where it brushes the mountains. The killer is the emptiness. Out on the High Line, you can run an hour between towns, and when the ice throws your rig into the barrel pit at 2 a.m., there is no gas station glow, no passing headlights, no bars on the phone. Just you, the cooling engine, and a horizon with nothing on it. Every other road on this list is trying to crash you. US 2 doesn't especially care whether you crash, it's what happens after that makes drivers quiet. The golden hour is a nice idea in a city. Out here, the golden hour ends while you're still waiting for help to even get the call. Old hands who run the High Line drive it a little slower than the limit for exactly one reason. Not because the curve is sharp, because they know that out here, a minor mistake and a fatal one are separated only by how far the nearest human being happens to be. The next road flips that exact fear inside out. It surrounds you with 60,000 people and still makes you want out of your own truck. Number 8. Chesapeake Bay Bridge, US 50/301, Maryland. Remember the bridge I promised you? The one somebody will cross for you? This is it. The Chesapeake Bay Bridge runs 4.3 miles out over open water, and at its peak, the deck stands around 200 feet up, on a span that climbs and curves at the same time, so as you crest it, your eyes tell you the road is simply ended in thin air. There's a name for what that does to people: Jephyrophobia, the fear of bridges, and it's common enough that a service called Kent Island Express has run for over 20 years doing one thing: meeting terrified drivers at the foot of the bridge, sliding into the driver's seat, and taking the wheel across. $40 cash. They run a dozen plus fares a day, including regulars who cross twice. Now put an 80,000-pound rig up there in a crosswind. When gusts hit 50, Maryland starts kicking vehicles off. Empty box trailers and light tractor trailers get banned outright because the wind up there will shove a high-profile trailer like a sail, and weather doesn't only blow. In early 2024, a wall of fog rolled onto the deck, and 43 vehicles piled into each other 200 feet over the water, with only a low steel rail between the wreckage and the bay. 60,000 vehicles cross it every single day, most of them never thinking twice. The trucker thinks twice. And if this list is riding shotgun with you, do the free thing and tap subscribe. It costs less than that $40 bridge fare, and it never asks for your steering wheel. Number 7. The Incopa Grade, Interstate 8, California. Cold and fog have been the enemy so far. This one comes at you the opposite way, with heat. I-8 is the desert freight lifeline out of San Diego toward Arizona, and just east of the coast, it drops through the Incopa Range on the stretch drivers call the Mountain Springs Grade, a committed plunge through Devil's Canyon toward the Imperial Valley, thousands of feet down. In summer, the air pouring through that canyon isn't cooling anything. It's 110 degrees, and there is no such thing as a cold brake drum when the outside temperature is trying to bake bread. Ride the service brakes for one lazy mile and the heat has nowhere to go. The pedal starts going soft right when you need it hard. The highway patrol out of El Centro knows this grade by heart. When a rig loses it on the Mountain Springs descent, they run rolling traffic brakes and cleanups that shut the westbound lanes for hours. And the state stuck a brake check and an escape ramp on it for a reason. That's another one for your count. This is border country too. The loads are heavy, headed up to I-10, and the shoulders fall away into raw granite boulders. Most scary roads hand you one enemy. Incopa hands you gravity and an oven at once, a grade that ices over a few nights each winter and then 6 months later tries to set your brakes on fire on the way down. And the next road doesn't need heat or height. It gets you with a decision you already made 20 miles back and forgot about. Number 6. Lookout Pass and 4th of July Pass, Interstate 90, Idaho, Montana. This one kills you with a decision you already made and forgot about. I-90 across North Idaho hangs everything on 2 mountain passes, and Idaho, a state with almost no chain law anywhere else, legally forces truckers to chain up on exactly these. Lookout Pass, right on the Montana line, is a 5-mile, 6% grade steep enough that the state parked runaway ramps at the bottom. And here's the trap the troopers see every winter. A westbound driver chains up, claws over Lookout in the snow, gets down the far side, and feeling good, running late, pulls the chains off. Then, 20-some miles later, he hits 4th of July Pass with no iron on the tires, and Idaho State Police are shutting the interstate down for 3 hours while they scrape his jackknifed rig out of the center barrier. It's so predictable, the local sheriff describes it like phases of the moon. First real storm hits, some rig folds up on one of these two passes, and the whole road stops. One truck, one skipped step, six-figure insurance claim, a canyon of stopped freight behind him, and an avalanche gate up the road that can close the whole thing anyway. The mountain didn't beat these drivers, the clock did. The little voice that says you're fine, save yourself 10 minutes, leave the chains in the box. Up here, that voice has a body count. Number 5, Cabbage Hill / Deadman Pass. Interstate 84, Oregon. The road has two names, and the second one is the whole warning, Deadman Pass. This is where I-84 falls off the Blue Mountains down into Pendleton, and Oregon's own numbers tell the story better than any dashcam can. On Cabbage, 78% of the commercial vehicle crashes involve out-of-state carriers, and 59% are caused by brake failure. Read those two together and the truth falls out. This hill doesn't kill locals. It kills the guy who crested the top not knowing what was on the other side. A 6% drop through switchbacks that finish in a double hairpin with advisory speeds posted as low as 18 miles an hour. 18! On an interstate. Oregon built every defense it could think of. A brake check pullout at the summit, 2 runaway ramps on the way down, and if you've been keeping that count from the top, Cabbage is the 5th road tonight where the state stopped trusting the pavement and started building things to catch the failures. Warning signs that practically grab your collar. And the 78% number still holds because you cannot sign your way out of a driver who didn't set his gear at the top. Add a winter fog bank hiding the hairpin and black ice on the shaded corners, and the median between the lanes widens into a full mile of separated mountain, because that's how much room the engineers needed to keep the two directions from meeting. The locals come down in low gear, board straight, no drama. Everybody else is the reason it's called Deadman. Number 4, US Highway 191, Gallatin Canyon, Montana. You'll notice this one before anyone tells you it's dangerous. You'll notice the white crosses. They line US 191 from Big Sky down toward Bozeman, American Legion fatality markers, one for each life the canyon took. And there are stretches where a single mile holds 7 of them. This is a narrow slot where a river, a 2-lane road, and a mountain all try to share the same crack in the earth, with, in the words of the state's own engineer, not a whole lot of extra room for anything. One report clocked as many as 39 crashes per mile on the worst stretch. And it's not a brake fade grade. 191 kills a different way. Ice on a canyon corner, a semi and a pickup meeting head on, 13,000 vehicles a day funneled through an artery that in many places doesn't even meet modern width standards. It's also the only road from Bozeman to Big Sky and the gateway to Yellowstone, so it can't just be avoided. The commuters, the tourists, the fuel trucks, and the reefers all pour through the same needle. And this is the number 2 road in the whole state for wildlife strikes, which means at dawn, an elk can step out of the tree line into your lane on a blind curve you're already taking too fast. The scenery is unforgivable. That's the cruel part. Drivers stare at the river and forget the crosses. The canyon never forgets. If you've ever driven past a marker like that and known exactly what it meant, hit the like button. It's how the next rookie's video ends up putting this road in front of him before the canyon does. Number 3, Wolf Creek Pass, US 160, Colorado. Here's a road so dangerous the state government runs an ad campaign against it. The Colorado DOT calls the program Beware the Wolf, and it exists to beg commercial drivers to respect one specific mountain, Wolf Creek Pass, where US 160 crosses the Continental Divide above 10,000 feet and then drops toward Pagosa Springs on a sustained grade with hairpins and a truck limit of 25 miles an hour on the descent. When a highway department starts doing marketing to make you afraid of its own road, listen. Wolf Creek's meanest detail is a geometry problem. Trucks are told to keep right coming down, but both runaway ramps sit on the left side of the road, so a driver who cooks his brakes has to steer an out-of-control 80,000-pound rig across a lane of traffic just to reach the gravel that's supposed to save him. Colorado's fine print is almost kind about it. You won't get a ticket for using an escape ramp, but you'll meet the state patrol afterward, and you'll pay to have your truck dragged back out. Country music got here before the campaign did. C.W. McCall Paul put 2 boys and a load of chickens on this exact grade 50 years ago, and every driver who's run it knows the song is barely fiction. The snow's measured in feet. The elk cross where they please. The state already told you it's a wolf. The drivers who treat it like a dog find out the state wasn't exaggerating. Number 2, the $1 Million Highway, US 550, Colorado. Now honesty, because you've earned it. Most long-haul freight never touches this road. It's too narrow, too high, too insane. And that is exactly why it sits at number 2, because the drivers who do run it don't get a vote. This is the 12-mile section of US 550 through the Uncompahgre Gorge between Silverton and Ouray in the San Juans, climbing to Red Mountain Pass at 11,000 feet on lanes carved straight into the cliff. Read this next part twice. A Colorado newspaper reported that Red Mountain Pass has, per mile, the highest avalanche hazard on the entire North American continent. And there are no guardrails, not a few gaps, long stretches with nothing at all between your outside tire and a drop of hundreds of feet, because the snowfall is so heavy, around 300 inches a year, that a rail would just trap the snow the plows have to push over the edge. The plow drivers are the point. Somebody has to keep the propane and the heating fuel moving up to isolated mountain towns in January, which means somebody is running a commercial vehicle on a hairpin cut into a cliff in the dark, while the highest avalanche slope on the continent hangs over the road. In one 2019 stretch, the pass got hammered by more than 20 avalanches and closed for 3 months. This is the scariest pavement in America. The only reason it isn't number 1 is that most of us are allowed to say no. The men who keep those towns alive aren't. Number 1, Interstate 80, Wyoming, the Snow Chi-Min Trail. And here it is, the road every driver on this list eventually has to run, because there's no way west that skips it. This is the 77-mile stretch of I-80 between Laramie and Walcott Junction, past Elk Mountain, and the long-haul drivers who suffered on it gave it the name that stuck, the Snow Chi-Min Trail, after the brutal Vietnam War supply line, because that's what running it felt like. When they built this interstate, residents warned the highway officials not to put a road there. The officials cut the ribbon anyway. 4 days later, winter closed it. Here's why it's number 1 and not just another scary pass. The gap by Elk Mountain is the lowest dip in the Rockies, so wind screams through it at freeway speeds, 90 miles an hour. And it doesn't even need fresh snow. It rips old snow off the ground and turns a clear afternoon into a whiteout, where a trucker told a reporter he couldn't see past his own hood, rolling his window down to watch the rumble strip just to find the edge of the road. Then the pileups start, and they're enormous, and the closures roll for days. Wyoming didn't fix this road either. It invented a 12-foot snow fence, now copied around the world, and hung drop gates across the interstate to lock it shut. That's the 7th road on your count, and the last one. And this is the part that puts it over every cliff and canyon we've covered. When Wyoming shuts this stretch, it isn't just Wyoming's problem. I-80 is a spine of national commerce, and one wind event out here stops the trucks for the whole country. The scariest road in America isn't the one that can kill you the fastest. It's the one that can kill you and freeze the nation's freight behind you, and that you have no legal way to avoid. Colder passes exist, steeper ones exist. You met them tonight. This is the one nobody gets to skip. That's the 12, and there's your count. 7 of them where the state quit fixing the road and just built something to survive it, which tells you the engineers already know how these stories tend to end. Drop the road that taught you respect in the comments, because somebody running it tomorrow hasn't learned it yet. Keep the rubber side down.